Thank you for the opportunity. And Harsh, thanks for setting the context of what I'm going to speak. I have my own views on what we are going to talk about, digital transformation in procurement. So I guess we are all talking about how procurement is transforming through the latest digital technologies. And if you see, the parallel that I draw is with, say, banking, right? When I started in my career, we used to go to the bank, we used to visit them physically, interactions, processes were all there. But the way banking has changed now, you barely go to the bank. You don't even know where the bank exists, which branch exists, where does it exist. You have it in your hand because of digital transformation. Same in the last, 7 years, 10 years or so, shopping has changed, right? Where you barely I don't go to grocery shopping at all now. So it's there, the processes are there, the functions are there, but I don't visit them. They are coming to me. And I see the same transformation happening for procurement, where within our organization, we are saying that, yes, procurement function is there, but I don't see it. I don't want to see it. Do I want to talk to procurement? Not really. If I'm the business guy, I want to do my own sourcing. I want to actually do my own procurement, but I want it obviously with all controls. I want to make sure that we follow the policies and the guidelines, but we also want to make sure that it does not stop me from doing it, right? Always they say procurement is the function which says, you can't do this, you can't do that, you are not supposed to do this. But with digital and the new age procurement, we want procurement to become the one who says, yes, this is what we can do. Yes, this is what we can do, right? So that can-do attitude is something that we want to change. And that's kind of where this is what I was talking about in terms of how the speed of change in procurement is now happening. And at least in the last, 10 years or so that we have seen, procurement has actually seen a lot of digital transformation. I would say almost disruption that we are seeing, that the way procurement used to happen before is not the way the procurement is now happening. There are piecemeal, things that we are attacking at every step of how we want to do this. I don't know if you are still there to the end-to-end procurement transformation to reach to that particular point where, it's like you don't even talk to procurement. You don't have anybody in procurement as a function. You just have IT people and, then business who is actually doing the procurement for themselves. I think that's kind of how the end state, but we'll talk about it, right? What does digital procurement really want? You want to be having with self-help, but the right process controls implemented. Again, I'm talking about invisible procurement function in the organization. You want better agility, you want faster decisions, you want an easier to understand, right? That's always say procurement makes it more complex. If you think of a business person who's actually want to procure and source something, don't make it complicated for me. I want to move fast. I want to deliver some results in the business outcome, but I don't want procurement to become actually a roadblock for me, right? That's kind of where the zeal is to make sure that procurement delivers that value faster and better. You also want simpler and standardized processes, and I think this is as a process expert, this is where you make it so complicated. You don't know how it happens. It happens in a different way in a different country for a different category. The different process steps, everything is so different and complex, and that kind of adds the complexity per se itself. Last or not the least, but deliver the ROI. We still want, just like banking, I want my, banking services to be provided. I want you as my banking partner to be delivering what I want when I want, but don't make it complicated for me. Be my partner, deliver the impact, deliver what I understand what I need, and make sure that you deliver that part of it, right? The same is what we say, I call it as partner mindset. Be the partner, but don't, and make it simple for me. But I don't want to talk to you every day, right? Be there when I want you, but otherwise, you are invisible to me. Right. And then, one more thing just on that point I would add is, procurement typically has been where a function which procurement experts who also understand somewhat of business, somewhat of the category, right? So they are procurement experts. I don't know there's any college which teaches you procurement. So everyone learns procurement, but they also understand somewhat of the category. As we get digitalized, the future of this would be where you are business experts who also understand procurement. So I drive my business, but I also understand procurement. Digital technologies enable me to drive that particular thing without any intervention from somebody from procurement function who will say, oh, hold on, I will hold the RFP for you. Okay, hold on, let me do the sourcing for you. But I still remain compliant as a business person. With that, speed of change, right? What is it that we are seeing in terms of the speed of change within procurement? Again, I say in the last 10 years, we have seen almost 10x, 5x growth in the amount of VC investments that have happened in procurement across. I mean, you may not be able to see all of these companies, but there are at least 1,000 companies out here who have got VC funding, who have startups who have they have kind of become decently sized companies who are trying to disrupt how procurement itself is working. And that's where you see the amount of change that is happening, the focus that is there of driving and leveraging technology across the entire spectrum of each of the aspects of procurement, right? You talk at the collaboration side of it, you call it from the upstream part, which is the sourcing, strategic sourcing, contracting, downstream of procure to pay. You're talking about risk management, ESGs, and analytics and data, right? So all of that is seeing significant disruption in terms of what are the companies which are trying to do themselves. The only challenge there here still continues to be the companies who are doing procurement. They are actually not fully ready to do that. And we'll talk about some more of the challenges that are happening. But there's a lot of disruption. There's a lot of availability. I mean, every second day there's a new startup which comes up and says, you know what, we can do this. We have an end-to-end product. We can actually, solve one of these problems out here for you. With this impact of what is going to happen, at least for now, right? I mean, I don't know when we'll reach to the utopia world, which I was talking about, where the entire procurement function is fully automated and digitized. But at least right now what we are seeing, and this is something that I say, I don't know which metric would you guys measure, but there are various dimensions that, I've just kind of picked up, and these are just ballpark estimates. But we're saying that procurement headcount per 100 people in the business, right? So what's the ratio? I mean, at some point we had, almost like 1,200 procurement professionals in the company. And we said, it's like, oh, do we really need 1,200 people doing procurement for the company? Because it's technically non-value add. Why do we need so many people? So that's kind of where we said, okay, one of the metrics that we want to see, how many people are there in procurement who are delivering to the business as a ratio. And that's where we are talking about, yes, we want to achieve at least 30% reduction in that kind of a thing. And this is what you will see through digital technologies, that this will get delivered. The cost per PO, at least 50% reduction. Can I automate the full PO processing? If I track how much is the one which it makes cost me to process and pay a purchase order, that is what we are talking about, the cost per purchase order. Manage spend per category manager. We had almost 80 plus category managers in our company. Regional category manager, global category manager, buyers, and we had so many roles. We are talking about at least looking at 50% reduction in that. Again, trying to make that invisible, business people doing their own sourcing rather than category managers, doing their sourcing for them and managing the complexity for them. We want to make sure that the sourcing requests for each buyer manages is at least, increased by 20%. How can they do better RFPs, faster RFPs, quicker RFPs? Especially if you're looking at tactical sourcing, can I just automate that process that you can go ahead and do it by yourself? You don't even need a buyer who buys, some $10,000 worth of product, and you have to get 3 quotations and you have to follow all of those steps. Procurement ROI needs to be at least go up by 2x. We're talking about sourcing fulfillment time, because that's what they said. I don't know procurement now. If I go to procurement, they will take at least 2 months to source it. By the time the business that I'm trying to deliver, I will get delayed. That's one of the challenges that we all talk about, right? Business guys don't want to come to procurement and say, what, you're going to be bureaucratic and you will make me follow the process, which is just way too painful and you're too slow. That's what we see as an impact of the digital procurement. What are some of the key technology trends that we are seeing, right? And we all talk about now Gen AI, and we are talking about AI and how will it transform, and what can we leverage, right? This is just, again, one of the statistics that, I kind of got. So now it is sustainable procurement. That's kind of picked up in terms of what are we seeing as some of the key trends. We are looking at AI. Everyone wants to do AI. It's the cool buzz that, yes, let's do AI-fy the entire procurement. Mixed views, but obviously we're still figuring out use cases, and we'll talk about some of them. Blockchain is the other one. I'm still struggling ourselves in terms of where do I exactly apply blockchain and how do I get the ROI of the implementation of blockchain, but definitely there are applications of there depending on which industry it is. Cloud and mobile procurement, we want everything to be actually there on our mobile, because when I'm talking to the supplier, I'm visiting them, I should be able to see and what is the supplier, who is the supplier, what do I do with them. Every new category manager has to sit and understand the supplier and what has happened before that. We want to change how that particular thing happens. And big data and cyber security are the other ones, right? The smaller one that you see is supplier management, I know, and I saw in your slide also, Harsh, is supplier relationship management is still the lower part of it, but I think that's kind of, as we come off some of these curve on the lower tactical side of it from digitalization, I think that will be the next big bastion that we want to solve in terms of how supplier relationship management and partnering where happens with your strategic suppliers. Okay, for those who are not initiated, but at least some of the digital resources for transforming procurement. These are various technologies that we are kind of evaluating and looking at how do we actually leverage them. That's why I say resources. So on the left is primarily technology. The top is various technologies that I've kind of listed out here of how do I use natural language processing to actually solve some problems that I deal with as procurement. How do I use machine learning? And I've differentiated Gen AI and agentic AI because there are different use cases on that part of it that we can use. Trying to do chatbots and virtual assistants to make that invisible procurement where they don't talk to a procurement person, but a virtual assistant can help them actually do the purchasing themselves and guide them on what the policies are. We are also obviously looking at data visualization for spend analytics. So fully automated spend analytics. I used to lead a team of 25, spend analysts. That team is no longer there. We have fully automated, and that's kind of what you see. The team has composition changed from data analyst to what you see on the right, which is data engineers, data scientists, process engineers, right? Of how they actually redesign data processes, got data scientists to actually create and build those use cases. So the same headcount profile has changed. That is what they are now trying to do in terms of how do we automate rather than manually doing reports and stuff like that. Obviously, the organization have invested millions, if not $1 billion, on data lake. And this is not just for procurement, but have an enterprise data lake. So that's the enterprise data lake that has been set up, where all of the data actually is coming together. And then these data analysts and data scientists are actually trying to tie up the data together to give those insights that typically procurement needs to make sure that they can give value to the business. Some of the use cases, and again, this is not exhaustive. This is kind of what we are actually trying out and working through in terms of how do we actually drive value. If you see on the left, that's what we have tried, identified key process areas, which we want to leverage in terms of use cases. And I'll maybe spend a few minutes talking through some of this. So category management, I think, starts from so we define the category management. We have supplier relationship management processes, then contract management. So insights and analytics, which is where we get all of the data, source to pay, and then policy and compliance. So across these areas, first is category management. So we have implemented a tool to make sure that we have the entire strategy defined. Again, being a large company, having almost like 45, 50 different countries where procurement category managers and buyers are sitting. We want to make sure that the global category manager is sitting somewhere else. The strategy is one clearly defined. It's aligned to what the business wants, and it's also clearly communicated to the entire rest of the organization from a perspective of this is what we are trying to achieve. These are our priorities. These are my preferred suppliers. This is what I want to achieve in terms of my category strategy. This is used to be in a PPT somewhere in someone's desk. Now we have actually put it through a tool called Sortio, and they are the ones who help us manage the strategy itself from a category perspective. We're also trying to get use again NLP and machine learning technologies to get category intelligence. So how do we actually feed that to get category intelligence? The category manager sitting somewhere else needs to know what is happening in the market, what is happening with the supplier, what is happening in the category in that particular industry in general, or even competitors. So that's something that we are trying to see. One, obviously we have third-party partners, but we are also trying to build social media, have crawlers to get that information, process that through NLP, and give some of those insights to the category managers, throw the alerts to them, which saying this is what is happening, you need to watch out for those. So that's kind of what we are trying to do in some of the category managers. We have automated the project portfolio management. Again, it used to be in Excel, it moved to SharePoint. We're now trying to say, okay, for your category, this is your key initiatives you're driving. That has been digitalized, where entire savings forecast, your plan, your actual tracking is captured over there in this particular centralized tool. From a relationship management perspective, again, this is, as I was mentioning, it is a bit of an underserved area still, but that's where we are trying to kind of do various use cases. One is supplier discovery. So we are evaluating a couple of partners who can help us discover suppliers for each of those categories of what are the new suppliers, what are the new strategies that they are deploying. How do we onboard them? That's something that we're still struggling. and figuring out rather in terms of how do we actually do better, faster onboarding of suppliers. Again, suppliers don't need to go through certifications and providing that, okay, this is the new supplier, what are your certifications, qualified. It takes 3 months for us to onboard a new supplier. We want to see how can we do self-onboarding and do a faster onboarding of suppliers. The supplier risk monitoring and supply chain risk monitoring, again, we are using some of Gen AI out here, as well as, crawlers to get those insights that I was talking about. We are using ML to actually do some of the fraud detection and duplicate payment to identify, again, have we made a duplicate payment? Is there some fraud happening in both sides of it, right? So purchase order is another transaction. So we're saying, is somebody splitting purchase orders to kind of, skip the approval process? Because if you go above a threshold, then you have to get additional approvals. So we are trying to identify, have you released multiple POs for the same supplier within the same period? How do we detect that and throw out some of these alerts, which is kind of the anomaly detection example that we're talking about. Contract management. Again, this is another area that we are kind of still figuring out how do we leverage Gen AI. We have started working with a couple of partners to create smart contracts, standardized templates across the company, language, regulatory requirements. That is something that we're still grappling with. But at least we have started by categories in terms of how do we do smart contract templates where the contract is standardized, the template will, capture, the category manager just enters, what are the key terms and conditions. Same way, whatever contracts that existed before is what we are trying to read, right? When we are doing we are diversifying one of the companies. So we had to actually figure out what the heck is the contract? Is this contract related to which company now? So we use Gen AI and OCR technologies to actually identify which contracts belong to only one division and which contracts are relevant for both of the divisions, and which contracts do we need to look at segregating them. We also identify, key clauses from contracts. So we say, okay, this is, one of the key, example that I think of is payment terms. As simple as that. Somebody negotiated a payment term, put it in the contract, pending the contract, and forgot. But we still continue to pay in the old payment terms for the next 2 years. So the effort of the category manager in renegotiating and what other terms, it never got implemented. So it was agreed to 90 days, but we were still paying at 45. And that is what we were trying to see. What does the contract say, but versus what does the master data has and what are we paying at, right? So that's kind of the analysis that we are trying to identify using some of these technologies. Throughout expiring contracts in advance, that this is the next contract which is expiring. Again, our CLM system was not that great. Obviously, the data in that was also not that great. So we had to do some of these insights to identify expiring contracts. For insights analytics, I think we kind of use NLP to do master data cleansing, do spend classification. I think that's most of us are doing. We are now making sure that the dashboards are available on mobile or an iPad for the category manager who's going in for negotiation. They get to see the entire profile of the supplier. They also get to see actually what's the spend, what's the interaction, what are the last interaction that happened with them, what is the status, and what are some of the action points that the previous guy has captured, or your last minutes of discussion. So that's kind of where the Ready Reckoner is available for the category manager. Source to pay is another one which is obviously transactional. I think we spoke about some of them. We supply chain finance, everyone has done it. This is kind of where I would say almost 50-60% automation has happened across most of the companies. But this is where we are now looking at a purchase assistant is one of the cool thing that we are trying to figure out for tactical sourcing low value items. Can we at least make sure that a purchase assistant can guide the person that this is what you need to source, and you go ahead and actually select your preferred suppliers, you release the bid, and you're done. And I'll skip that, I know. So some of the key headwinds, right? I mean, we spoke about some of them. I think we all will relate to it. Or what I've tried to do is, again, people, process, systems, and environmental pressure. We still see people challenges. We still see adoption issues. If technology takes its own speed and people are ready, I think in the next 5 years will be fully automated. But I think we still see a significant gap in terms of the digital awareness and literacy of within the people itself. And I'm not talking procurement, I'm talking business. Business is not fully ready to actually utilize and leverage that part of it. And that's one of the challenges that we definitely see. Systems is the next biggest challenge, which is difficult, right? If no one procurement solution solves it all, we have disparate systems, interfacing them, bringing them all together, getting the data from all of them. That's where technology also solves it. Technology also has created the problem, right? Because of multiple different technologies. Data availability and quality, we all know, is like it's always a problem. And regulatory issues, requirements. We spoke about some of the data. I will not go through this in terms of what are the various data requirements. This is an interesting slide. What I just want to kind of highlight out here in terms of what is the stakeholder alignment on procurement value. Because yes, we are talking about digitalization and all. This is an old, study and analysis, but I still like it. I think it is still relevant in terms of what does procurement get credit for. And this is, nowhere digitalization, shows up out here, right? Or what procurement expects. So while procurement is getting digitalized, business expectations remains the same. So the only thing that is changing is the ROI that procurement needs to deliver without its own cost, right? Not being there, better service, better impact, but making sure that we get the credit, obviously, for that. Otherwise, procurement never gets recognized for what have you delivered, right? They still complain about that you have not delivered this. Again, just one more 30 seconds more. So what I think in procurement, will be like in 5 years, again, at the risk of some of those challenges, we would want to see, and we will see end-to-end process automation per se, right? I don't know who can solve it, but there we want to end-to-end process automation, making sure that no human involvement is happening. Complete spend transparency. I think we're kind of getting there already, but depends on which company and what size it is. Supplier ecosystem is the other key one that I was mentioning, right? How do we actually bring our supplier ecosystem together for driving, this technology adoption, for ESG requirements? How do we make sure that we deliver the value? How do we drive innovation for our own company itself? And, how can machines make automated value creation for us, right? Where they are solving the problems that our business wants. These are the problems that our suppliers want, right? How do we actually leverage some of the technologies with that? But very, very excited about how technology is going to change procurement, and this is the best space to be in and driving technology. Thank you so much.